here's my card. Here's my audience. Wave. Hey.
Oh, sorry.
Alright. So I doubt any of you all have ever seen a baby like this one, with the symptoms like these. That is because symptoms like these are caused by diseases like measles. Measles has an effective vaccine against it, which has been administered for many years, helping it reduce its numbers throughout the population and reducing its effect on the entire human population. However, today more than ever, you're more likely to see a child like this one presenting these symptoms. And that is because of the anti-vaccination movement. The anti-vaccination movement is rooted in distrust of medical science and a campaign of fear-mongering and misinformation of media and corporations alike. So, while 90% effective and reducing 2 to 3 million deaths per year, according to the World Health Organization, the anti-vaccination movement is on the rise. So first off, the goal of a vaccine is to induce an immune response in order to protect your body from an antigen later on. A vaccine is made of 3 things: the antigen, which is what you want the immune response to go against; the adjuvant, which is the immune response enhancer; and the excipient, which is all the other stuff you need to make it easily administered. So, the anti-vaccination movement arguments are rooted in these 3 things and the overall purpose of a vaccine itself. And while it is impossible to go over every argument of the anti-vaccination movement, we can go over the most common. And that is that excipients are harmful to human health, that antigens in vaccines cause antigenic overload, and that natural immunity is better than conferred or vaccine-induced immunity. So to start, we're going to start with the most popular: excipients are harmful to human health. So the thought is that excipients cause adverse reactions like autism, neurological disorders, and immunological disorders, which are far worse than the benefits that you would get from getting the vaccine. This idea is upheld by young people according to Human Vaccines and Immunotherapies in 2013. So young people think this idea because of their exposure to the media and all these other high media and internet outlets. So the most common excipient that people have a problem with is thimerosal, which is a mercury-containing compound. Thimerosal, which you can see pictured right here, is an ethyl derivative. Ethyl mercury compounds are harmless to the human body because they're not easily metabolized. The misconception is that thimerosal is a methyl-containing derivative, which are easily metabolized by the body, causing it to be a potent agent against the body. So, furthermore, a fun fact is that according to the FDA in 2018, you are more likely, or you experience more mercury from eating fish dinners than you get from any vaccine you're ever going to receive. So, now that we know that excipients are harmless to human health, the next is that has to do with antigens themselves. And this is the idea that antigens in vaccines cause antigenic overload. This concept is that by given a bunch of vaccines, or even just one vaccine, it's too much for the body to handle, and therefore overwhelming the immune system. Simply, this idea is not true. Today, I was just hearing a woman say that she was amazed that her child was getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vaccines all at once, and how that had to be harmful for their child. However, your child's immune response is much stronger than you think it is. Also, the exposure you receive from getting a vaccine is far less than what you're going to experience from a natural infection. And furthermore, the antigens you experience on day-to-day life are far less than the total amount of vaccines you'll ever get from your lifetime. So, and then lastly, the antigen that is in a vaccine is attenuated or weakened, or even killed, making them harmless to the human body. especially in respect to that of what would be in a wild-type virulent strain. So, while even more widespread than the concept of antigenic overload is the idea that natural immunity is better than conferred immunity. So, this idea is based on anecdotal evidence that when I get sick, I get a better immune response than when I get a vaccine. Simply, that is also a misconception. Natural infections and vaccine immunity are all encompass the same cell signaling pathway, creating the same antibodies and therefore the same response. This means that natural infections and vaccines are equal, just as strong, and just as robust as one another. However, with conferred immunity, you get the same strong long-term immune response without any of the side effects that you get from a natural infection, like a rash or fever, chills, or any other nasty symptom. So, whether it be natural immunity or conferred immunity or any of the other misconceptions of the anti-vaccination movement, it is important to be informed of all these arguments so that you can help curb against them. So to recap, while diverse anti-vaccination arguments are rooted in distrust of medical science. The most common are that excipients are harmful to human health, antigenic overload, and that natural immunity is better than conferred immunity. So now that you all have the foundation, it is your job to go home, do your research, and help spread the word to help curb this national health crisis and help generations to come and save our children. Thank you all. So, any questions?
Go ahead.
My question is, I remember reading stuff about things like the measles and chickenpox almost being eradicated just because nobody had gotten them in so long. So how does it spread? Like, where do the measles come from?
So, the only disease there's a couple diseases that have been only totally eradicated: smallpox and polio. So both of those, polio is almost eradicated, smallpox is totally eradicated. So to get those, you have to have laboratory exposure or some random mutation in the wild by a different or a virulent polio strain in this case. That's where those come from. Measles comes from those small pockets of communities that don't have the herd immunity, which we have. So herd immunity is achieving greater than 90 to 95% of vaccine protected individuals. So when you have pockets that are less than that, you have people that can get infected. From there, they can get infected and carry it to someone in a healthier community, and that is how it spreads. So while less present, they're not eradicated, and they random and they pop out, causing outbreaks.
Where do you, in your opinion or what you had to guess, why do you think all of this misinformation prevails?
So it started with the Lancet. So there's a famous publication in the Lancet, I want to say in 1999. And that was the famous case of the MMR vaccine causes autism. So from this idea became the craze that vaccines are harmful, we need to start really digging deep into all these things. And that study was debunked. The doctor lost his medical license, but no one knows that part. Everyone just has heard vaccines cause autism because that's the more fun, popular part. So that is where it came from, and media outlets have held on to that. Drug corporations can utilize this fear, so the fact that people don't want to get protected from these illnesses anymore, they can actually start to create drugs for these illnesses, which is a profit center for them. So many motives of all these groups, but people are still hurt. Any other questions?
So I've gotten the flu shot twice in my life, and both of those 2 times I've gotten the flu. If vaccines are supposed to stop you from getting these diseases, how come that's possible?
So with the flu is a special case itself. With other vaccines, you are generally protected. So for example, have you ever had measles? You have the MMR?
Yes.
You have been protected because you have not had to experience measles because of MMR. With the flu, the way it's produced is that every year they take the old strain of the flu, they take it into the lab, they allow it to induce its mutations, and they take the most common mutant strain of the flu from that year and use it in the vaccine for the following year. So in some years, in most years, that method is effective, in which we can accurately predict how the flu is going to mutate and therefore have a vaccine against it. And in some years, like last year, that does not work. A different mutant prevails, and that causes a really nasty flu symptom or season. So while you may have been given the vaccine to strain A, you probably were infected with strain B, and that is how you still get the flu each time you've gotten the flu shot. So, any other questions? Thank you all.